Welcome to So Mom. It's been a week.
It hasn't even been a week, Adele.
I know it's the middle of the weekend. It's been a week.
That's right.
But I was. We have a great show,
I know.
and we have Dr. Jawaan Wallace to talk about all kinds of things that I feel like we just went through as a family, and then in a larger capacity. But I feel like I've been doing lots of strange things that I don't usually do in my week. But I was just speaking with Nick at Riverside, the production company that we use
Yes.
for the show. And I said, because we were trying to figure out the cameras, and my camera was this soft, gauzy, diffuse light that looked like White Diamond, Sally Field. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it looked like
Elizabeth Taylor.
Nick said 80s soap opera.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I said, why is my camera? It did that on my Zoom call yesterday, and I didn't know. And apparently it's something with Apple, and you just go into video and you change it. But when I was on that call yesterday, I was like, is this just the light coming through? What is going on with this? But I think it looked a little bit like, hello, love. Hello. This isn't a camp now that I know.
Are you
That it was just a filter.
dying?
I'm a little bit, yes, I'm like, I want to go back in time and change that filter. There's nothing weirder than the filter that you know is
Yeah,
wrong.
because I just want to tell you, I always look see if people have filters. I'm very aware of it.
I was doing
I'd
it.
hold it against.
I'm holding it against I was doing it from my son's room, which is cluttered. So I had blurred the background.
Yeah.
It also looked like I took a swipe at myself.
While I'm masking this clutter, let me just.
Yeah. But
That's
apparently on the Zoom, if you have a Mac, it's this Apple. It's something I don't know. I'm
Why
getting
don't
very
you just
old.
add to it by writing an explanation to them? Because that'll help.
In calligraphy. Anyway, that is all my news is that I'm happy for this podcast because it keeps me
Because it
learning.
just is the absolute starkest look of ourselves on this
Yeah,
podcast. I look at it
absolutely.
and I think, when did I get so pale?
Anyway, today has been a lot of zooming around, but yesterday I did the Writer Wednesday where we have people
Your
over,
friends, yeah.
and we had a peach cake.
Oh,
There's none left.
mm.
It was very good.
Well, I'm making a peach galette for your husband
Oh,
because he had his wrist surgery. And men in surgery, I'm just saying,
he has a sweet tooth. You get a lot back.
you get so much back.
There's a lot of joy.
Unless he doesn't like it, because he'll also tell you exactly what he
He
doesn't
rates it.
like.
Nobody asked for his rating system.
No, but you get it.
You get 6. That was a 6.
Yeah. and you might have worked hard on it, but I'm kind of with him there.
I had a friend who made a homemade lasagna, and he said, that's a 6. And she was so mad at him. She said, well, now you have to make a lasagna for me to rate it. And he did.
Oh, that's good.
No. And she
Yeah.
happily, joyfully rated it a 5.
Okay.
And he took it.
Yeah, he always takes it.
Does he like
He always takes
reality?
always takes it. So your older son has been away on a camping trip,
10-day camping trip with his class.
which always amazes me because I would have in September been trying to figure out how to get out of that.
Oh, there's no
and-
way I would do that. 10 days.
He's been on how many camping trips this year? 3?
The school sends him on 2 a year, I think,
2?
but maybe 3 your senior year. They're very interested in kind of wilderness tips.
They're wonderful trips.
Yeah.
I would have been trying to figure out how to get out of it, and my mother wouldn't have been easy, and she would say, oh, you need to go. But honestly, I would have tried to throw my back out or break my ankle before going on the trip.
I would have been proposing, I can do all of this in my backyard, and here's how.
And we lived in an apartment.
Just like my backyard.
Yeah.
And how it's just like the wilderness.
Yeah.
I will have a tent. I will have my brother run around in a wolf costume. I will eat all of the dehydrated food products. Please don't make me go on this trip.
And you would have been on a picnic blanket reading the whole trip.
Yeah, I would have
In the
ignored it as
backyard.
soon as they approved it.
Yeah.
"Can I do this trip from the infirmary?"
But he loves them.
He does, and they really teach you a lot.
Yeah. He comes home with an unbelievable experience each time. I give this school so much credit.
Yeah. But it's not really optional. The school, it's mandatory trips. Everybody does them.
Yeah.
People are
You wouldn't
tested.
have.
I think I would have had to.
Mm,
So, yeah.
well,
But we're watching with my other son. We're watching a 4-part documentary about oh gosh, what's it called? It's so scary. I can't even watch it. It's about free climbing or
oh,
about
free climbing. Yeah.
this guy who's just this daredevil of the time. And I keep watching it with him. And I say, but you're not going to do that. He's like interrupting my show. But you won't do that.
I worked with a man who was head of a school, and he was a free climber, and his brother. And I mean, it was part of his life that people fell off and were killed. And he did it, and he loved it. But
The search to feel truly alive for that kind of adrenaline is so different for people or whatever that is.
climbing a ladder is
I know.
climbing for me.
That's it's on the top
I'm
shelf.
so scared.
Will she do it? He was in Switzerland for one of the climbs, and I was like, "What is that a cafe down there at the base of the hill?"
Yeah.
It's like we could go there to the base of that mountain and look at it. Today on So Mom, we are joined by Dr. Jawaan J. Wallace, an educator whose entire life has been shaped by classrooms and college campuses. The youngest of 4 children, raised by 2 educators, an elementary school teacher and a college administrator, Jawaan grew up taking family vacations to visit universities and presiding over make-believe classrooms of stuffed animals. That early apprenticeship turned into a remarkable career. A bachelor's from Hampton University, a master's from the University of Akron, and a PhD in College Student Affairs Administration from the University of Georgia. She began her career in undergraduate admissions at Johns Hopkins, where she led a multicultural recruitment effort. Today, she serves as Director of Enrollment Management and Collegiate Partnerships at Marlborough School in Los Angeles after rising through roles as Dean of College Counseling and Interim Director of the Upper School. What makes Jawaan such a special guest for this conversation is her deep insight into what parents actually want for their children beyond the test scores and college acceptances. In her fall 2024 NAIS article, What Parents Want for Their Children to Matter, she draws on more than 20 years of conversations with families to make the case that underneath every parent's anxiety about academics is a more fundamental longing, the desire to know their child is seen, valued, and that they matter. Drawing on the work of Jennifer Wallace and Morris Rosenberg's concept of mattering, Jawaan offers a refreshing reframe for any parent navigating the achievement culture so many of us are caught up in. We look forward to a wide-ranging conversation about school and parent pressure and what we all can do to de-stress the college process. Please welcome Dr. Jawaan Wallace.
Hello. Hi, Jawaan. It's so good to have you here. And you really are one of the premier nationally, not just in Los Angeles, but nationally, one of the premier administrators' voices for college guidance. You are known everywhere.
Oh, thank
So
you.
it's nice to have you, and we have lots of tough questions. Right?
Well, I'm excited to answer these questions.
Well, we share something. You and I were both children of educators, and that's an um, interesting childhood to grow up with people who correct your grammar. And
It is.
yeah, we only had one parent, but I made up for it. So tell us a little bit. I mean, that was the family business. So how did it shape you?
When I think back about my childhood, I think I was just incredibly lucky to have two parents as educators because, as you said, it's kind of like the family business. That's all I knew. And when I kind of reflect on my career, I think about how much of what they instilled in me is in my career now. You mentioned in kind of the intro, many of our family's vacations revolved around visiting college campuses. And at the time, I thought that that was completely normal. I thought that's what every child did. And so I remember a story when I was probably in like third grade and came back from spring break. And my teacher said, "What did you do for spring break?" And I said, "Oh, I went to Duke and I went to Chapel Hill and I went to North Carolina State." And that's not the intention. That wasn't the intention of our trip, but that's what I remembered from the trip. And she just kind of looked at me like, "Oh goodness, her parents are absolutely insane." I'm like,
Getting you ready.
getting me ready for college. I think that it's kind of ironic that I landed in education and it specifically in college counseling, given just kind of that background growing up. And the piece about me being so lucky is just that my parents were just such dedicated educators. Your parents are always your biggest role models, I think. And I think watching them, the way that they were committed, the way that they were devoted to their students and the work that they did, just kind of was instilled in me at such an early age. And I see that coming out now in my career today.
So you went to an HBCU, Hampton University. What made you decide that you wanted to do that?
So that actually, I think when I think back on that decision was the absolute best decision I ever made. And, as I mentioned, just grew up loving college campuses, loving the idea of college. And so I knew probably in middle school that I wanted to go to HBCU. I grew up in a predominantly white community. And it was actually a small island in between Buffalo and Niagara Falls, 6 miles long, one high school, one middle school, two elementary schools. So everyone knew each other. It was very community oriented. And I loved it. But at the same time, I didn't necessarily feel like I fit in. I just felt different. And I spent a lot of time wanting to feel included, wanting to feel like I belonged. And so, as I was going through kind of like my identity development, which is, kind of my middle school years, I knew I wanted to go to a historically Black college. And so my dad saw that and he bought me this book full of historically Black colleges. So it's kind of like the FIS guide, but for Black colleges. And I literally would read them every night. I would just read the profiles and just imagine myself on these college campuses. And the way that I chose Hampton, probably not the best way to choose, but as I said, growing up in Buffalo, New York, Hampton is near Virginia Beach. So it is
Good enough.
by a beach. So I was like, that sounds like a great fit for me. Luckily, by the time I was going through the college search process and we went to visit, I fell in love immediately. I remember meeting the college admission officer and he immediately just said, "We don't shake hands, we hug." And like
Mm.
it just felt like home, it felt like family. All of the students were so kind and warm, and like I said, the best decision I ever made because when I went to Hampton, I was no longer the only, I was finally a part of the majority, and that just allowed me to flourish and grow in so many ways and really helped me to develop a self of confidence that I think was missing prior to college.
Do you have long friendships?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a little ridiculous the love that I have for that institution. And I just celebrated last year was my 25th anniversary, and so many of us came back to celebrate on campus together. And those are some of my best friends, my closest friends, and now we're all in the age of having children, and some of their children are going to Hampton, and it's just really nice to celebrate with all of them and just reminisce on our experience. But it was just such a special, very, very formative part of my life.
Anything that says we're starting with a hug just feels to me
Isn't
like
that amazing?
there's only opportunity for
Yeah.
a stronger alum network and,
Yeah.
yes, the memories and then also just the legacy of feeling, I don't know, just like
Yeah.
this is for me. It's just
Exactly.
lovely.
It's interesting how many graduates have of HBCU schools have the same feeling. I
Mhm.
mean, I've never seen anything like
Yeah.
just that love, and how exciting to have that infusion, that gift from is it Mackenzie Scott,
Yeah. Yeah.
who gave what was $20 million
Yeah. Exactly.
to
Smart,
HBCU,
smart
which
gift.
is which wonderful gift.
Yeah, and I think about that too, like, just my job and kind of helping students find the right college fit. And I can't imagine my life without going to Hampton, but I also know that I could have had that experience at a lot of different places. At HBCU, for sure. I knew that that's what I wanted, but
Mhm.
I know that I probably could have had that experience at other places, but was lucky enough to go to Hampton.
Well, you've had many conversations with anxious parents.
I feel like I've just come
Yeah,
off
I
of
was
these
just gonna say.
conversations probably more than in a lifetime, but I felt that I had had many anxious conversations myself this year. So I'm very joyful that you can put me in a group
Yeah.
because this was a singular year for us having a college senior and going through that. But for you, this is just
This is
far.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
It's a yearly thing.
yeah. But I am curious, what do you, in all that anxiety, what would you say to parents coming to you with all the anxieties and sort of offering them to you in terms of reorienting some of that anxiety? What would you say to a parent kind of undergoing this whole process?
What I often say is that, I mean, you hear all the time, you have to trust the process. And I think for parents, oftentimes they just want to get it right. They love their kids so much. And there's this fear, I think, that they're going to do something wrong and they're going to make the wrong decision. And I just really believe that there aren't wrong decisions. I think the best thing that you can do is know who your child is, and listen to who they are, how they learn best, where they're going to thrive, and really focus on that in the process. Because I think oftentimes parents, they want advice from friends and neighbors and anyone that's gone through the process because they just want to get it right. But what is right? What might be right for your neighbor is not necessarily right for your child. And so I think the advice I like to give is just like, know your child and be open in this process. You're not going to make a wrong decision. There are, I don't know, probably 4,500 plus colleges and universities out there. And so your job is to really be the supportive cheerleader and help them do self reflection and really figure out who they are, what it is they value, and what it is they want in a college experience and support that. I think sometimes parents, you might go on a college tour and you are reacting to what you're seeing in this college visit. And you might not love everything you see, right? A child might really love it, but because they see you reacting negatively, that just kind of they kind of sink a little bit and they're like, oh, this place must not be good enough. And my parents are not as supportive of this particular institution when really it could have been a really, really great match for them. And so just really knowing your child and just being that supportive cheerleader throughout the process.
It's so true that parents have so much influence in how their child sort of synthesizes all this. I had this talk this year with my husband when we were going through it. And I said, you have to understand, he is, whatever you say, he is listening so hard to you, for particularly him, because I think he had a lot of opinions and they were good opinions and it was all very interesting. But I was like, he's never going to go to the place that you don't speak well of, or he's always going to be, your thumb is on the scale.
Hmm.
um, no matter how we love to talk about him, oh, our child, he's, his own person, he's so self-determined. There's still in that child, there's that feeling of like, I could never go to the place. And
Exactly.
I knew it for myself, but I also felt like I just like to scold my husband.
Right, right, right. I had a conversation with a parent, and the student was deciding between two different schools, two amazing schools. The mom had a preference for a particular school, and she's like, "I'm just so afraid she's going to make the wrong decision." And I'm like, there's no wrong decision.
Yeah.
You have taught her extremely well. And wherever she goes, she's going to take advantage of all the opportunities there. And so she can't make her own decision. But if you keep pushing and saying you don't want her to go to this particular school, she's not going to go to that school. So just, you got to be quiet. You got to take a step back. You just got to hold some of those thoughts in and know that you've raised an amazing human being that's going to make the best decision for them.
Yeah. It's amazing when you see parents, or we've talked to parents and say, you have to find balance for your child. You have to allow them to have more sleep. You have to, all the good, healthy things. And they do it until the college process, right?
It's all out the window.
And then it's kind of all out the window, and everyone's starts panicking.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think it's, parents fixating on what their friend group is saying and what colleges they think are worthy of their child.
Mhm.
What do you say? How do you break through that?
Yeah, that is the hardest part of my job because I think all of us do that when we think about colleges and universities where we say things like, I want my child to go to a good school. Well, what is a good school? what
Yeah.
what is good for me is not necessarily good for you. And so, I think in our society we put 10 to 15 schools on this pedestal. And that's what we believe are the good schools. That is where our child has to go. And if they don't go to one of these schools, then they're a failure and their life is over. And that's completely not true. And so I try to get parents to really think about, again, focusing on their child, how their child learns best. Um, and when they're thinking about creating that college list, making sure that it's balanced, because unfortunately, these schools, those 10 to 15 schools that everyone wants to go to, are really, really hard to get into. You think about maybe the top 15 schools, and many of them have about a 5% acceptance rate, if not lower. And so, in anyone's right mind, why would you think that if the school is rejecting 95% of the people that are applying, you should never go into that process thinking, oh, absolutely. My child has straight A's and a perfect SAT, so they're absolutely going to get in. You should never think that. And I use the example, I say, okay, if I told you that we're going to have dinner plans, we're going to go to dinner, but I told you there's a 95% chance that I'm not going to make it. What do you think?
I think you're
Dinner alone.
eating by myself.
And try to party her on the college process in that way. And think about it as and I don't want to discourage families from thinking about some of those highly selective schools because obviously there are kids that go and do very well there. But to think of it as I'm gonna reach for this particular school. I'm gonna think that I'm probably not gonna get in. And then if I do, then great. That's amazing. That's a bonus. But when you're putting together that list of colleges, making sure that you have a nice broad range of schools on that list of colleges. And so you want to have a couple schools that are reach schools. You want to have a good majority that are what we call target schools. And those target schools are going to be schools where the student's academic profile falls right in line. And then you want to have the likely schools where, your academic profile is above what the stated averages are. But the most important thing about those lists is that you love everything on that list. Because if you end up, say you only get into one school and that's that likely school, and you just put that on the list because I have to put a likely school on there, and you don't really love it, you're going to be really disappointed in the process. And so, what I try to do is really make sure kids are loving every single school that they're applying to. And I think like schools to me are different categories, and you just got to figure out the category that you want to go to. So, whether it be maybe you want to go to a single sex education school, or maybe you want a large public school. Once you've identified that type, then there's hundreds of schools that fall within that type. And so your job is to kind of do the research and figure out, which schools you could see yourself at. But where I see people make a mistake is just getting attached to one particular school.
Yeah.
and thinking that that's the only place that they could go and that's the only place that they could be happy, because that's just not true. And the other mistake that I see people making is, they put a lot of emphasis on the reach schools. And so they want to, well, I'm just going to shoot my shot. I'm going to cast this wide net. I'm going to apply to every highly selective school. And you want to also think about, well, what's that going to look like when you start to get decisions? So if you're applying to 10 schools that have a 4% acceptance rate, you're probably going to get 10 rejections. And how is that really going to feel to a child as they're sitting and opening up those decisions? And so having a balanced list in this process, I think, is one of the most important things.
It's hard because both children and parents love the idea of the reach school. They love the idea of, well, I'm going to apply. And I think saying you're likely to, there's a real possibility you could have 10 rejections. Having seen that happen, it's devastating.
Devastating. Devastating. Even when the kids, like I've had kids who have had fantastic options, but 5 rejections, and that those 5 rejections still hurt. Even though they got some really great acceptances, they got 5 back-to-back rejections.
Yeah.
Like as adults, rejection is hard. So imagine a teenager and getting multiple rejections over and over.
It's such a shiny thing, people, it's a little bit analogous. I think people sometimes send me manuscripts. I've been in the publishing world for 30 years and I get these manuscripts, and sometimes it's somebody who really wants to think about, how do I get, an agent, or am I anywhere near what the marketplace wants? But lots of times you get sort of a coded to how does this become a book and make $1 million? And so the whole process then is a sort of a backward process of like, what do you want to say in this book? And is this the book you want to write? And do you want to do 15 drafts of that? And are you aware that nobody makes $1 million? And like it's all the back questions that kind of start to make the goal less shiny because you're sort of more thrown back on yourself and what you really want from this world, which is hard because you feel like I'm just a domain expert in wanting this thing.
Yes.
know?
And it's like, give me this checklist that I can just check off. And if I do all these things, then I should get that shiny prize.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing about the college process is it doesn't work that way. And it is such a, I think, subjective process because, these are just humans reading file after file, and who knows what type of mood they're in. So there's not really, I think, a rhyme or reason sometimes. But I think so many parents and so many students want this roadmap that you just can't really provide. And so the best advice really is to be authentic and be yourself, and hope that they see that and want you to contribute to their institution. But it's tricky.
It's hard getting them to move off the idea of a rejection. That this isn't a rejection of you. This is a decision that a college is making for a lot of people, and you have to separate that out. But we've all seen kids who say, I have done everything. I have done everything I've ever been asked to do. And they didn't, it's sort of like, and they didn't love me.
Yeah. It's hard and it hurts. And that's one thing I really try to do with students is, especially when I'm working with students like 9th and 10th grade very early on, is really emphasizing just how important it is to do the things that they want to do and the things that they love. Because I see so many kids getting involved in activities that they don't want to do, but they think that it looks good on their resume and they think that's going to help them for college. And so I tell them, like, do the things that you love, pursue those things. Even when it comes to choosing what classes to take, these colleges and universities will tell you, like, oh, you have to take a rigorous curriculum. Well, if you're not good at math, you shouldn't take the highest level of math, because that's not gonna bode well on your application. But these kids, they're feeling this pressure and feeling like they have to do all of these things when at the end of the day, most colleges, and I talk to a lot of college admission officers, they just want genuinely real kids that are going to contribute to their university and just bring their talents in it. And they don't need to see a laundry list of things. There might be one thing that you're good at, and that's the thing that you do, and that's fine.
I'm going to push back just a little bit because I think um, some of the responsibility for this lies on colleges
Mhm.
because you hear them say, we don't want you to start, you don't have to start a business. We want your most authentic self. All of the things that they should say,
Mhm.
but that doesn't really translate
Mhm.
into the acceptance. So I feel sometimes kids are caught between us saying, here's what we want you to do and work hard and get good
Mhm.
grades,
Mhm.
all of those things. And the college is saying it, and the kids are, sort of, I don't know what, I'm 17 years
Yeah.
old. I don't know what people want
Yeah.
of me.
They think they need to have it all figured out. And I definitely get really frustrated with colleges and universities because you're exactly right. They are saying, oh, be authentic, be yourself.
Right.
But then you didn't take all of these AP classes and you didn't do this. So um, it's tough. But from my experience, I will say the kids that have been most successful in this process um, have been the kids that have really taken advantage of the things that they're interested in, that they've been true to themselves, they've been self-reflective, they've thought about who they are and where they're going to learn best. And from my experience, they've been the most successful in the process.
And I'll bet they end up being successful adults.
Mhm.
Don't you wish we could show a movie of all the kids who didn't get into their top colleges, went to schools that they said, well, it's good enough, and what their sort of grit and their optimism, their happiness, all of those factors, see where they ended up. If
Mhm.
parents could, just take a step back and see how successful some of the kids nobody thought would be
Yeah,
particularly successful.
because you know, having worked in education year after year, we have those stories every single year where a kid is so devastated and upset that they just have to go to this school that they didn't want to go to. And then by November of that next year, they are coming back and like, oh my gosh, this was the best decision of my life. I'm so happy um, that we experience that every single year.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
What's a question that families don't ask on the college tour that they probably should ask?
I think the college tour is really an opportunity to make sure that the research that you've done lines up with what you've researched. And so one of the things I always tell families before they do anything is to take a look at the mission and the vision of the school.
Mhm.
You can find a school's mission and vision on their website and the About Us page. And I think that's like kind of your first step because when you read a school's mission and vision, you're going to be able to tell like does that align with my own values? And sometimes it doesn't. It's completely off. But if it does, then that gives you kind of the permission to take that next step and investigate a little bit further. So when you're on the college tour, you want to make sure that that mission and vision is being played out in what you see. And so I think people get caught up in asking kind of the wrong questions on a tour, or asking about, things that you could easily look up, but you can't look up culture and
Mhm.
experience. And so you have to do your job of really observing if you're seeing that play out on the college campus and asking questions of the tour guides, things like, what is one thing that surprised you about being here? Or um, kind of what do you enjoy most about this campus experience? And do you feel like it has matched up to what you thought this was going to be? And so I think like really digging in and really making sure that they're seeing that mission and vision played out.
Mhm.
That's really good
That is
advice.
good advice.
You know, some a very wise person gave my son that good advice, and it was very helpful for him. And it was also helpful for him when he looked at it in this very whole experience of what the school was trying to tell him. and when he answered questions
Mhm.
in the application. You know, it was really something that he was like, oh, this isn't just something they're putting on their website.
Exactly.
This has been very, very thought about. And, you know, it needs to resonate with me. This is what they are
Mhm.
telling me. I think it
Mhm.
was really shifted his
Mhm.
thinking toward, you know, the application as well, you know, saying, am I a part of this place? You know, do I make sense with what is being told to me?
Exactly.
What do you wish when you went through it, you had a pretty good sense of what you wanted
Yeah.
and where you wanted to go, much more so than most people, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you don't have any. Do you have advice for yourself?
I do have advice for myself. I think the advice that everything works out how it's supposed to. Because I mean, even though I did have a good sense of like where I wanted to go and that, you know, I definitely experienced, not getting into a particular sorority or like having disappointment or rejection in certain ways. And at the time, it was the end of the world, and I'm never going to get past this. But then to be able to reflect and look back and see like, oh, this is why this happened this way, so that I could be set up for this better thing that was down the line. And so I think the advice I would give is just to know that it is going to work out and that we end up where we are supposed to end up.
It's it's so wise. I wish parents could hear it. I think one of the things that I've noticed that I think is complicated is that parents don't want their children ever to experience failure.
Yeah.
And life is built, you know, one failure at a
Mhm.
time. Um,
Mhm.
how do you deal with that with students who are coming to you and with parents?
Yeah, that is a tough one.
Yeah,
Because people don't want to hear the cliche, everything happens for a
right.
reason. Um, and I think it just takes experience for them to understand. And I've definitely had several conversations over the years where parents have walked away very upset with that response. But they always come back around. And so I always hear back, whether it's a year later or 10 years later. Um, they come back and they reflect and say, you told me I was so mad at you at the time and you said that everything was going to work out. And I'm back to say that it did work out.
We could write books about parents who said, I was so mad at you
Right.
or kids.
Right. Exactly.
It's we found it a very celebratory process though. And
Oh, it
with
was
this
wonderful.
year, you know, honestly, it was he he's an artist and his choice was so from a very early days was siloed to, you know, just where can I go make art? But I always felt like how great that there's a place.
Mhm.
There are multiple places to think about this question.
Yeah.
And he, you know, sometimes I could feel that he had the most frustration when he came back from a day at school where there was almost a culture of frustration,
Hmm.
you know, and then he'd have to reset
Hmm.
a little bit. But there is also like within the student body, I think there's a lot of pressure in there and just especially when it was like, oh, I'm applying to this many places and I'm doing it this way. And then he'd think, oh, I'm doing it all wrong. I'm sailing down a garden path. I have to be like more terrified. And so then he would get all of that input and then he'd reset. But mostly when he was just sort of, you know, staying the course of like, oh, I love art. Where's the best place to go make art? Fundamentally, that really held him.
Yeah, it should be such a joyous process. It should be fun. You're learning more about yourself, but you do talk about that pressure that students feel from other students. And we see it all the time. If, one student is doing one thing, they're like, well, I'm not doing that. Do I need to be doing that? And everybody, if there's just this culture of comparison. And with this process, it is all about you in this process, and you have to focus on yourself and not be distracted by the noise. That's another thing that I often tell students is like, you've got to tune everybody out and you've got to focus on you. And then parents, I will also say, you can't talk about college 24/7.
Yeah.
I tell families to choose a time, one time a week that you're going to talk about it. And it's maybe like 1 hour and you can get all your questions out and everything that you want to say about it, but you cannot ask it any other times. And you have an understanding with your child, like, okay, this is our college chat time. Your child understands that. You talk about it and then you don't bring it up for the rest of the week.
We had to, and Adele and Eric really set, I think, a great example because Jason had this choice and everybody wanted, I think in the family, we all wanted him to choose one thing and he was going to make the decision and he made that clear and nobody was allowed to talk about it, so when he took it kind of up.
Mom would text, "Has he? Hello. Um,
Yeah.
wondering just this when was he?" Or I was on another text with him and he didn't bring it up. So has he? He was just sort of like drum rolling us. I think he was enjoying the
I think he was. 'Cause we
moment.
were not.
We were, we couldn't say a thing. But it was all him.
It
Um,
was.
but it all worked out. I going back to the pool of kids, I also think a piece of pressure comes from the student um, who has two very different options. We had this where the student was, should, should I go into the science pre-med place, or should I do sort of the more liberal arts? Oh, I think I'm going to do the pre-med, the grown-up, in quotes, decision, or that sort of decision, which really struck terror into everybody because that's somebody signing up saying, I have a lot of choices here. I'm doing really well, and I'm choosing this responsible choice. So that had happened in this year, and I think it kind of had a ripple effect on other kids. And it is interesting how, you can have people think, oh, I thought I was making a good decision, but this person who has always been such a leader
Yeah.
is making, this very, kind of more of a shiny decision.
Mhm.
And I can see how that would be, an added layer of complication
Yeah.
in you running of this kind of giant ecosystem of
Absolutely.
emotions.
Absolutely. I mean, we're so influenced by what other people think. And I mean, as adults, we are too.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But again, just really trying to emphasize how like this is a decision that you're gonna make that's for the next 4 years. So you really have to be thoughtful and think about what you want and try to really eliminate those other voices and focus on what's gonna make you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I remember talking to a trustee, a really nice person who was trying to do all the right things. And he came up to me and said, I just have to explain something that it's not necessarily what we would do or want to do, but there is so much pressure from our friend group. And he said, we weren't going to hire because my point was you have the best college people in the school. They're dealing with these schools all day. An outside consultant is not.
Mhm.
And they're expensive.
Mhm.
And it's a racket for the
Mhm.
most part.
Mhm.
And he said, it's not that I wanted to, but my friends all said, who are you using?
Yeah.
And when I said we weren't using anyone, he basically was a little shunned by his group. And it made him feel as though he didn't love his daughter.
Yep, that is such a real thing. I just had a conversation yesterday with the dad, and he was saying, "Well, I have to hire somebody because everybody else is." And so you feel like you're putting your child at a disadvantage. And what I say about independent counseling, I say you never want to hire an independent counselor if you feel like it's going to give you some advantage in the
Right.
process. You hire somebody because you want to help with organization or you want to keep the peace with your child. But if you think that it's going to translate into better results, that's not the reason to hire someone. It's more so for the organization and management of the process.
That's so wise. because there's nothing wrong with hiring someone who will take some of the burden off the parents and be that,
Yeah.
but the advantage piece is why I think they do. This is, I'm sure people are dialing in, listening to these words of wisdom, because it is so complicated to be a good advocate for your child. Everybody wants to. It's not that you go into it, I'm wanting to not do the right thing.
Right. Exactly.
You do want to do it.
It's all out of love.
It is. It is. What's something parents do that they think is helping their child, but it's actually working against them?
Yeah, I think the like constant talk about college, which we touched on a little bit, um, I don't think that that is helpful. And I think parents, they just want to be helpful. They want to make sure that their child is prepared for the process. Um, but the constant um, talk about college, I think, can really kind of push students away. And so it can really have the opposite effect of what they think that it's going to have. Just to your point about independent consultants, like use that person as if you want to get a message to your child, use that person because most children do not want to listen to what their parents have to say.
Really? Well,
They often just don't listen. They don't. They don't want to hear it. But if somebody from the outside steps in and they give the same exact advice, they're like, "This is such a brilliant idea! Like, oh my goodness, do you know what this person told me?" And you're sitting there as the parent, like, "I've been trying to say that, and you did not want to hear that from me at all." So you gotta, as parents, you have to use your resources. So if you are at a school that has a great counseling team, you work with the counselor, share with them the message that you want your child to hear, and let them do the work.
yeah.
Because the chances are they're going to listen to outside voices.
That is such good advice, particularly using an outside counselor. Let that person do the job, and not the expectation is this child's going to actually get you into a better school than you get. Very good advice.
Yes.
Jawaan has written several articles that are phenomenal. They've been published in educational journals, and we will
Post the
actually
links.
we will post the link. Yes, we will post the link to your good advice. This has been an incredible hour with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on to So Mom.
Ugh, it was such a pleasure. It was so fun.
I'm sure everybody, all the parents will be, will see the spikes and all of the listening.
We'll put Jawaan's links on too, because that's what she needs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to So Mom. And if you like what you hear, please don't forget to subscribe, like, all the things, wherever you get your pod on. Thank you.
Thank you all.